Half a day, Nānhu Si Johnson Raela. Welcome back to the Pacific.
Whakalofa lahi atu ko hingo ha'aku ko Alice Lolohea, and the reason why I used a Niuean greeting is because Niue was recently named as one of the greatest places of 2025 by Time magazine. So special shout out for the Niueans.
Let's take a look at what's coming up on the show today. We're in New Caledonia with President Alcide Ponga, almost a year since unrest engulfed the territory.
A Tongan twist to the Aussie fish and chips.
And a look behind the scenes at the Pacific's new theme song with Solomon Islands producer Casey. But first, Alice with a bit of news, and we're starting with a bit of controversy in PNG.
That's right, Johns. Facebook users were hit with an unexpected ban as the PNG government carried out tests in response to what they say is irresponsible social media use.
Facebook is currently banned in Papua New Guinea.
In a statement, PNG Minister for Police and Security, Peter Siamalili, said the government is not trying to suppress free speech, but the ban was implemented under PNG's new Anti-Terrorism Act.
The unchecked proliferation of fake news, hate speech, pornography, child exploitation and incitement to violence on platforms such as Facebook is unacceptable.
It was later revealed the restrictions were part of a counter-terrorism operation to track down two men with connections in attempts to incite terrorism. The Act gives the government power to monitor and restrict digital communications. The ban was lifted after 2 days, but some critics say the government are using these tactics to silence their critics.
It's not a one-off isolated action. It's a well-planned, well-thought-out, coordinated action. And I think if this goes down, you'll see more of it coming. Very soon you're going to end up with a substantially totalitarian regime. We are beginning to see pieces of governmental action that is beginning to shrink our rights and freedoms.
And staying in PNG, a Formula One track, a spy agency and a luxury island. No, they're not items from a billionaire's Christmas wish list, but they are a few of the projects Papua New Guinea's government is hoping to embark upon. Leaked cabinet papers seen by the ABC detail 70 proposals, with PNG ministers hoping to expedite a few in time for the country's 50th anniversary later this year. These highly imaginative projects also include plans for a space agency and a Silicon Valley-style hub for entrepreneurs. On the streets of Port Moresby, people say it's a waste of money.
The government has to come down to the level of grassroots people when making its plans.
To make a name for PNG and compare it to other countries, yes, but that is make-believe.
Some of the projects outlined do address issues like increasing food production and access to clean drinking water. As for the government's bigger schemes, critics don't share the same enthusiasm.
Well, at this stage, I wasn't surprised. We've seen the government do a lot of things in the last 5 years. There's going to be massive funds that will be diverted to these projects. Yeah, there's really no accountability at the moment.
Prime Minister James Marape told the ABC that a few projects will receive government funding, while most are private sector engagements with government incentives to be given. You can check out the full story by ABC's PNG correspondent Marian Farr on the ABC Pacific website. And it's been a rough few months for Samoa's Prime Minister, Fiame Naomi Mataafa. After surviving 2 votes of no confidence, the PM is now dealing with an electricity crisis as frustration grows for residents being left in the dark after ongoing power outages. For over a month, blackouts across Ubolu, some lasting up to 16 hours, are affecting everything from food storage, schools, and even the National Hospital. Samoa's Prime Minister, Fiame Naomi Mataafa, has addressed the nation, promising improvements.
For emergency power supply, 5 rental generators producing 5 megawatts output will arrive by April 5th of this year to help with the power shortage.
The Prime Minister also added, new diesel generators are on order and a solar farm expansion will launch this December. Samoa's Electric Power Corporation has cited ageing infrastructure, maintenance issues and severe weather as key reasons for the outages.
The government and EPC are committed to strengthening and expanding power generation to ensure a stable and reliable electricity supply for Samoa.
But online, plenty of people are still upset.
It's 2025, it shouldn't go off that much. It reminds me of the 80s when it went off every other day. It's time to replace whoever's in charge.
Poor management, poor service, ridiculous.
Don't blame the Fast Party. In Lauli Alimali Atua, they have nothing to do with the problem. Blame the person in charge of that department. He's the one who's responsible for the electricity power.
Okay, now, coming up to a year since riots engulfed New Caledonia, the French territory's political, economic and social landscape is almost unrecognisable. The main political factions all have new leadership, and for the first time in years, all stakeholders have engaged in discussions on what a path forward looks like. Hanging over the negotiations is the need to wrench the country out of a spiralling economic crisis as thousands of French migrants return to Europe and the nickel industry, a key pillar of its economy, dives further into a tailspin. Here's Sini Yasona reporting from Noumea.
In downtown Noumea, I've come to meet Betty Levonke, a cafe owner and real estate agent.
Bonjour.
Hi, Sini.
Amid the French territory's problems, she says there's only one reason her cafe hasn't gone under.
We had received money from the French government, obviously. Otherwise, we would have been all dead already.
You have less people, and you can tell. But we are still running, so that's good. We are not dead yet.
Since the riots last May, which caused more than €2 billion worth of damage, New Caledonia's already fragile economy has only weakened further. According to the Chamber of Commerce, an estimated 10,000 people left the territory last year, mostly French nationals.
You have still people leaving, and you can tell because we have much more apartments or houses for rent.
I'm a real estate agent, right? So since May 2024, all my contracts, they failed. 5 of them failed. Between May and August, they failed. And we didn't sell anything since then because you have those people who are afraid of the future, and so they sell it for a lot less than the real value.
Experts say the exodus is creating skill shortages, especially among professionals like doctors and nurses. Still, Betty says some who left for France have ended up returning.
The main reason is that they have understood that life in France is not like they thought, that grass could be greener in France. Actually, no, not really, unless you have a lot of money.
The unrest has shaken every corner of New Caledonia's politics. Many factions now have new leaders. And for everyone, a key question is how to bankroll the recovery, with the territory's first ever pro-independence Kanak president Louis Mapu ousted when part of his coalition balked at a plan to help fund the rebuild with a loan from France rather than a grant.
C'est un sale coup politique qui est porté à notre pays.
Among the many things that shocked people, there was this, the fact that it's a debt for a future generation, whereas the state should have paid, you know. This is really not the best way to help us. This is the best way to make us more dependent on France.
In the fallout, the territory's Congress appointed a new president, Alcide Ponga, from the pro-French party Le Rassemblement.
Ce qu'attendent les Calédoniens aujourd'hui, c'est que l'on puisse travailler ensemble et donner un signal d'espoir.
Many see New Caledonia's economic woes as tied to the question of independence. Last year's unrest was driven by disputes over the territory's political future, but also by entrenched inequality. Young Kanaks are 3 times more likely to be unemployed than their fellow citizens, and many of them led the revolt in May 2024. As Noumea burned, France responded with the deployment of thousands of state forces, sweeping curfews, arrests and a ban on demonstrations. And while many of those measures have been wound back as the violence has eased,
Bonjour.
Oh, my friend.
Andre Kwase at Kanak pro-independence radio station Radio Jido says the issues that prompted the youth to take to the streets are unresolved.
Le vrai problème, c'est au niveau du partage des richesses. Jusqu'à maintenant, beaucoup en ont gagné, puis ils en ont bien rempli les poches, et puis il y a beaucoup qui n'en ont pas eu beaucoup, quoi. Donc c'est ce travail de rééquilibrage et puis de partage des ressources qui est au cœur des discussions actuellement, quoi.
He says the current power-sharing arrangement with France hasn't eased the cost of living.
Beaucoup de difficultés au niveau des transports, beaucoup de difficultés au niveau des logements et beaucoup de difficultés aussi du chômage puisque beaucoup ont perdu leur travail. Au niveau de la radio, c'est beaucoup de témoignages des populations qui viennent ici, surtout par rapport au transport. C'est le plus difficile, donc pour que les gens ils viennent au travail, ils sont obligés de marcher à pied.
His colleague Nina Sanso agrees and says things must change fundamentally or there'll be more of the same.
If we don't change, every several years there will be like that some movement and it will become more and more aggressive. There will be more and more people who will die. So we have to say, okay, just sit. We have to sit around the table and we have to speak together and we have to find a way.
The good news is there's been some progress on breaking the deadlock. Since the riots, a new French Overseas Minister, Manuel Valls, has been appointed. And on a visit last month, he managed to get pro-French loyalist and pro-independence leaders in the same room to talk for the first time in years.
Manuel Valls, at least, is perceived as being more sensitive to the Melanesian way. He was involved in talks that led to previous peace deals with New Caledonia, but is still walking on a very tight rope. He has to try and reconcile two very different views, those who want New Caledonia to remain part of France and those who want full sovereignty.
Calling the talks discussions rather than negotiations, the slowly approach produced a synthesis paper which listed the desires of all parties on a range of contentious issues.
And it puts a finger on very sensitive issues like who will and who will not qualify as a New Caledonian future citizen. And very important as well, how will New Caledonia be described in future and what status it will have vis-à-vis France, like several options, free association, shared sovereignty, no change, or short-term independence. It's anyone's guess.
Seul le dialogue permettra de reconstruire un projet commun et partagé et d'imposer la paix. C'est ça le grand enjeu. Il nous appartient de construire une Nouvelle-Calédonie qui doit rester unie et indivisible et d'imaginer une souveraineté avec la France qui protège chacun, tout en poursuivant et achevant le processus de décolonisation et en garantissant le droit constitutionnel à l'autodétermination.
To discuss these issues and what he has planned for the territory, I'm headed to speak to its new president Alcy Ponga as he prepares to host the French delegation for another round of negotiations this weekend.
Bonjour, Mr. President. Thank you, or merci beaucoup. Thank you so much for joining us on the Pacific.
Bonjour, et merci de l'invitation.
To begin with, when you took up the presidency, you said more than anything else you felt the weight of responsibility. What do you mean by that?
Donc c'est une grosse responsabilité.
It's a big responsibility that is getting heavier because of the situation in New Caledonia, the political situation, but also economic and financial situation. So all this together, I must admit, it puts a big burden of responsibility on the office of president. The events of 2024, triggered by the plan to change who's eligible to vote in elections, were a means of expression, which has exploded in our face a little and which has brought our societal divisions to light. I think, in my opinion, that New Caledonia is capable of overcoming these divisions. There were the events in 1984 when we were on the verge of civil war in New Caledonia. The elders were able to get over that, create agreements, sign them and work together for 30 to 40 years. That's the challenge we have today. It's the responsibility of all New Caledonians, politicians, businesses, citizens, mayors, traditional people, the sports community, associations and so on. Everyone must work in this direction to rediscover what is deepest inside us, the desire to live together.
What's your plan to improve the economic situation in New Caledonia?
Le 18e gouvernement.
There are two sides. The first is that of the state that helps us, through public finances, subsidies, aid, loans to feed our respective budgets. But there is a second part, which is that of our own economic activity. And I'm thinking in particular of nickel, where we are working to ensure that mining activity resumes in New Caledonia. I'm convinced that with the resumption of mining activity, the economy of New Caledonia will start over, and the engine will start again and prevent all our structures from collapsing.
The Chamber of Commerce says as many as 10,000 people have left New Caledonia. Is that consistent with government figures, and what's your plan to encourage people to stay?
Je pense déjà que c'est un peu moins.
I already think it's a bit fewer, around 5,000 or so. And we need to be specific because I think in that 10,000 number, there were students who left too. And I have said this to some of my pro-independence colleagues in political discussions. We don't build our country for pigs or the deers or dogs. We build it for men and women. We build it for our children and grandchildren. And so this question of negative or positive migratory flows is an important issue. And a country is something that lives. We have a real problem with getting medical professionals to stay in New Caledonia. If we were to be independent tomorrow and we didn't have doctors, we didn't have nurses, and then people are sick, then we're all going to die here. It's complicated. We're trying to find mechanisms to bring in and attract medical staff, and I don't know if we'll succeed. But I always come back to my first point. If we stabilise a political agreement that doesn't talk about independence, but talks about continuing to build our society, that will stabilise things and facilitate the return of workers and care professionals. Today in the North Province and the Island Province, it's a medical desert. It's really unfortunate that we've gone back 40 or 50 years. But I repeat, the economic, financial, social difficulties mean there are people in Greater Noumea that can no longer buy food at the end of the month. It's very, very difficult for many families. And so we need to sign a political agreement to stabilise things.
Is it hard for you at the moment, with the current situation that New Caledonia is in, to imagine an outcome for the independence discussions that would most benefit New Caledonia? And what would that be if you could imagine that outcome?
Well, already the discussions would be in agreement. It's not about independence because today, if we were independent, we would completely be unable to support anything at all. And it would be a social misery. It would be civil war. It would be people who steal from each other everywhere. It would be complicated in New Caledonia to talk about independence. In fact, I even think that some of my pro-independence colleagues are aware of this. Many families today who are supposedly pro-independence, they're in enormous social misery. And people, I think, know that today. I try to defend and carry the voice of an agreement that advocates for solutions to everyday problems. How do we solve social inequality? How can we manage our education? How can we manage our transport problems? But that's what the basis of the agreement has to be on today. Because if we're talking about we want to be independent and so on, for me, it's in the realm of dreams. But everyday life, it isn't dreams. When you have a dad or a mum, they have to put food on the table. And that's reality. That's what the agreement must carry. What do we put in this agreement to respond to the problems of New Caledonians? I think if we were really independent, I think that many people would regret it because they know that it's complicated, that it will be complicated to manage a country ourselves if we were independent tomorrow.
Merci. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be bringing you more stories from New Caledonia later this season, so do keep your eyes out. Now, for a change of pace, because arguably one of Australia's most popular bands, the lovable skivvy-wearing children's group The Wiggles, have been in our region. Everybody clap. The group have been with our neighbours in Timor-Leste as part of a humanitarian mission in the country in their role as UNICEF ambassadors. They've been touring schools near the capital Dili, singing songs with local children and talking about health measures like washing hands.
It's so good to come here and see these wonderful children and adults working together in a place which has got just such positivity and love.
Thank you for coming, making us happy and playing together.
Those kids are so cute, but I still think that they're learning some of the words. But those are some very happy school children.
You know what makes us happy? Food.
We love it.
And for Tima Tausinga, her love and happiness for fish and chips has spawned the social media sensation Etitas.
But this Tongan Samoan business is more than its mouth-watering food. It's a tribute to their Aussie upbringing, to family and to their island roots. And to see the magic behind its making, I got into the kitchen.
You, in the kitchen. I have to see this.
See me be amazing. Let's go and eat. Let's go and eat.
Hi, how are you?
Lovely to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
All right.
Come on, come inside. We're going to put you to work today. You want me to pop that on for you?
Sure.
Too many cooks in the kitchen. I know, I feel a little bit useless, to be honest. Cool.
Forward. One job.
I was already doing food under another business, and then my older brother, he thought to rebrand with something that's more personal. So my grandmother's name's Etita, E-T-I-T-A. We've just changed the T just to help with pronunciation. Hi everyone. So our family's been here since the 70s. Fish and chips is a classic Aussie feed. We grew up on fish and chips weekly, so it was kind of a treat from our parents. For myself, there was a lot of nervousness definitely opening, especially in this economy that we're in at the moment. And we did try to enter the market with like island ingredients, island cuisine, and it wasn't kind of taking to. It was very hard to educate people that weren't familiar with our flavours. So we went back to the books and we thought to come out in a more classic way. And the locals, they've really taken to us and welcomed us.
Guys, make sure you're checking your food,
There's that saying, you know, it takes a village. And it seems like there's a whole village going on here.
Oh, most definitely. My family is pretty much the whole behind the scenes team. It's very homely, it's very family orientated.
Mental health is so important to Editas.
Yeah, definitely.
Why is it?
We lost our youngest brother in 2012 to suicide, which was a massive eye-opener for my family because mental health isn't something that's spoken about in Pacific Island communities. A lot of elders did tell us to keep that hidden how he passed away, which was something that we were so against. And so ever since that day, we've spoken openly about what had happened.
And what better way to have that conversation keep going over food?
Yeah, exactly. Like you sit around the table, share some food, share some conversation. Like it's a perfect combination. So what were you after today?
So, I have seen on TikTok there's that thing that has all the sauce leaking out the side.
That's our specialty.
All right. And what's the story behind it?
My dad, he's the only one that ever ate the fillet fish. So that's kind of like a in honor of our dad. It's a fillet fish on crack. Yeah. Who made that fish burger? Why is there so much sauce in it?
Onto here? This side? Both? He's laughing at me. Was it too much?
He did it himself. Oh my gosh. We are now bringing in more of our island dishes, you know, island favourites like ota, seafood salad. My brothers and I, we were the only islanders at our school. So I think it's very important for our next generation, so my nieces and nephews, to be brought up with the confidence in who they are and to identify as well with their heritage.
On our show, it's so important to reflect true engagement with the Pacific region. Now we have Pacific camera crew and reporters working in our communities to bring you our stories.
And now we can also say we've worked with a Pacific music producer to create a new theme song for our show. So to end the program, here's Solomon Islands artist KZ, the producer of hits such as Waigo and Shake It For Me, on how he came up with the new theme.
Ka kite.
Island dancehall no me start with him and me believe him have a nice vibe too. Him adapt come lot reggae him make a music blame me solo little bit collab little bit song keyboard na this one after most cultural dance blow especially Lolohea since me grow up Lolohea me looking cultural dance blow every province and me fall too. I'm garang one fala tempo where everyone sa banga inside no. So me creating beat follow na same type vibe but me hide na ta culture sound na me put more modern music inside. Same type instrument but different type sound. Lot song me put him na same one fana why go Shake It For Me. Then me walk mal inside lo ABC program tracks. For the Pacific. Kasi me expecting to can't because something like me can not believe in that motion no. Cause something with this film lo on vibe no. Time goes and inspire me for make kind of stuff a bit here. Think I mean in music film so long start for improve yeah so start for people start for mean business la music na hot not take mo fun.